and a very pleasant Friday morning to you, wherever you may be. My name is Andy Lee, and I am honored to be filling in for Jack Reed Jr. this morning for story time at the beautiful Gumtree Bookstore at Reed's in downtown Tupelo, Mississippi, celebrating its 150th year, sesquicentennial year for Tupelo. And like always, we have wonderful children's books to read to you this morning. And while we wait for people to hop on the Facebook and Instagram feed, I'm going to ask some of my special friends here, like Mr. Giraffe, Mr. English Bulldog, Mr. Monkey, Mr. Cow, and this other dog down here. Since there's nobody around us, we're practicing safe social distancing, is it okay if I take off my mask to read so the kids out there can better understand me as I read the books? Is that okay? All right, they say yes. So just for now, while we read the books, we'll take off the mask. We got 5 excellent books to read you this morning. The first one, if you have young kids, you might be familiar with this one, Pete the Cat. I know my son read this in kindergarten and he loved it, and even has the little Pete the Cat doll with a heart there. Pete the Cat. This one is called Pete the Cat, Rocking in My School Shoes. Story by Eric Litwin, and the art by James Dean. Jimmy Dean. James Dean. No, different James Dean than the Rebel Without a Cause. James Dean is the creator of Pete the Cat, by the way. This is Pete the Cat, Rocking in My School Shoes. Here comes Pete, strolling down the street, rocking red shoes on his 4 furry feet. Pete is going to school, and he sings this song. By the way, he's got a little lunch pail, his backpack, his red Converse All-Stars. He's ready for a big day at school. And here's the song Pete sings. I'm rocking in my school shoes. I'm rocking in my school shoes. I'm rocking in my school shoes. There's Pete's lunch, there's his guitar, the Cat City bus, and a stop sign. Pete is sitting down at his desk when his teacher says, "Come on, Pete, down that hall to a room with books on every wall." On the chalkboard it says, "Where is Pete going?" He's going down the hall. The library, just like this beautiful library here at the Gumtree Bookstore at Reed's. Pete has never been to the library before. Does Pete worry? Goodness, no! He finds his favorite book and sings his song. He's got a book that says Wild Wild West. I'm reading in my school shoes. I'm reading in my school shoes. I'm reading in my school shoes. Ooh, it's lunchtime. There he's got his big lunch pail that says Pete's Lunch, so nobody takes it. Check out Pete. He's ready to eat in a big noisy room with tables and seats. Where is Pete? Well, we know where Pete is. He's in the lunchroom ready to eat. The lunchroom. It can be loud and busy in the lunchroom. Does Pete worry? Goodness, no. He sits down with his friends and sings his song. Here he's got his carton of milk. We all remember that from our school days. A nice carton of milk made that peanut butter and jelly sandwich taste so much better. Pete sings again. I'm eating in my school shoes. I'm eating in my school shoes. I'm eating in my school shoes. What is lunch? He's got an apple, that carton of milk, some goldfish crackers, and looks like a raw fish, maybe a mackerel, a trout, who knows. Now it's recess time. Pete's on the slide. Pete and his friends are playing outside on a green grassy field with swings and tall slides. Where is Pete? The playground. Kids are running in every direction. Does Pete worry? Goodness, no. He slides and swings and sings his song. I'm playing in my school shoes. I'm playing in my school shoes. I'm playing in my school shoes. All day long, Pete sings this song. I'm singing in my school shoes. I'm painting in my school shoes. I'm adding in my school shoes. I'm writing in my school shoes. When school is done, Pete rides the bus home. There he is on the bus, riding off. Pete's mom asks him, "What did you do at school today?" And Pete says, that song again. "I was rocking in my school shoes. I was rocking in my school shoes. I was rocking in my school shoes. And I will do it again tomorrow." Because it's all good. Classroom 123. And that was a fun book. Pete the Cat, rocking in my school shoes. The little Pete the Cat stuffed animal. All right, guys, one book down, 4 to go. You having fun so far? Excellent. Me too. The next book we have for you this morning is All the Awake Animals Are Almost Asleep by Crescent Dragon Wagon, illustrated by David McPhail.
Is that door locked?
Hi.
Hello.
Someone going out the wrong.
I think it's.
It's just okay.
Yes.
My little one, lay down your head. It's time to doze. It's time for bed. Mama tucking in her son. You tell me I'm not sleeping now. Just try, I say. You ask me, how? The answer, darling little child, is every creature, tame and wild, has night and day, has still and leap, has wide awake and sound asleep. Look, even all the awake animals are getting sleepy. In fact, antelope is already asleep, all the way to his antlers. Baby bison has bedded down beside her brother by the barn. Alliteration, a lot of B's in that one. Alliteration will be a theme in this book. Cats curled up on a crimson couch cushion, while chimpanzees created a cozy cradle of leaves, and she and her child climb in cuddling. After a day in the desert, dromedary, do you all know what a dromedary is? It's like a camel. Dromedary drops down to his knees, dozing under the date palms. Each evening, elephant eases her elegant ears and edges into sleep. Fox, fading fast, finds rest in the forest, while frog, ribbit, ribbit, just floats, letting her feet flop until they find firm footing near the ferns. Goose and gander say, "Good night, darling goslings," not Ryan, and they all go to sleep in the garden. Hedgehog is hibernating, hiding in her hole. Ibex, it's like a little billy goat. Ibex inches his way up the icy incline toward a good day's nap. And jaguar, or jaguar, stops jumping, or if you're a football fan, jaguar, stops jumping through the jungle, just resting now. Kangaroo and koala are kin. Each curls up in his mother's king-sized, kid-sized pouch. Here's the undisputed king of the forest, the lion. As the light laps the leaves, lion lies down, lounging low with lioness and the little ones. Mole makes a mattress of mud as the moon rises over the mountains, while Nightingale naps in a nest near the ground. Otter, overcome, is out in the ocean, rocking on and on, oh so gently. In a protected place on a precipice, Panda plumps down peacefully. There you see Panda taking a nap. Quetzal, it's a bird, wrapped in her quilt of feathers, grows quiet. Rabbit relaxes into restful repose, dreaming of the ripe red radishes. If any of you have ever had a garden, you know how those rabbits love to get in there. Swan, eyes shut, slumbers, standing single-legged on the shore. As snake sighs and starts to slither toward a sweet, slumberous snooze. And sloth just sleeps, but that's what sloths do all day anyways. Whether it's daytime, nighttime, they're always sleeping. Turtle's tired and turns in, tucking each tiny toe into her tight shell. Underneath an umbrella of leaves, Urubu nestles his head under his night black wing, unaware of the waking world. Vole vanishes into a violet shadowed valley. Walrus wades into the waves and catches 40 wet winks. Cuckoo Cachoo. Expecting an exceptionally excellent night's rest, Yak yawns. Ooh, if you need to yawn, take a little stretch break, that's quite okay. And Zebra just Z's. An alphabet of ways to sleep, of ways to rest, and ways to keep a stillness quiet through the dark, without a chirp or roar or bark. Each animal from A to Z has found itself so sleepily its pond or tree or pile of hay to rest in, nest in, Z to A. And you, my little human one, since night is here and day is done, and since you have a cozy bed, a pillow for your dozy head, with no more why and not one how, might you, like them, start sleeping now? Shh. 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 The end. That was a fun book. All the awake animals are almost asleep. Now let's move on to a classic. Some of you parents might remember this one from your youth. I know I do. This is Make Way for the Ducklings by Robert McCloskey. Make Way for Ducklings, Robert McCloskey. Mr. and Mrs. Mallard were looking for a place to live, but every time Mr. Mallard saw what looked like a nice place, Mrs. Mallard said it was no good. There were sure to be foxes in the woods or turtles in the water, and she was not going to raise a family where there might be foxes or turtles. So they flew on and on. When they got to Boston, they felt too tired to fly any further. There was a nice pond in the public garden with a nice little island on it and a Larry bird. The very place they to spend the night, quacked Mr. Mallard. So down they flapped. Next morning, they fished for their breakfast in the mud, at the bottom of the pond, but they didn't find much. There they are, trying to find some breakfast in that pond. Uh-oh. Thanks, Bennett. Just as they were getting ready to start on their way, a strange, enormous bird came by. It was pushing a boat full of people, and there was a man sitting on its back. "Good morning," quacked Mr. Mallard, being polite. The big bird was too proud to answer, but the people on the boat threw peanuts into the water, so the Mallards followed them all round the pond and got another breakfast better than the first. "I like this place," said Mrs. Mallard as they climbed out on the bank and waddled along. "Why don't we build a nest and raise our ducklings right in this pond? There are no foxes and no turtles, and the people feed us peanuts. What could be better?" "Good," said Mr. Mallard, delighted that at last Mrs. Mallard had found a place that suited her. But "Look out," squawked Mrs. Mallard, all of a dither. "You'll get run over." And when she got her breath, she added, "This is no place for babies, with all those horrid things rushing about. We'll have to look somewhere else. See, danger, the bicyclist, not a place for baby mallards." So they flew over Beacon Hill and round the State House, but there was no place there. They looked in Louisburg Square, but there was no water to swim in. Then they flew over the Charles River. "This is that dirty water. This is better," quacked Mr. Mallard. "That island looks like a nice, quiet place, and it's only a little way from the public garden." "Yes," said Mrs. Mallard, remembering the peanuts. "That looks like just the right place to hatch ducklings." So they chose a cozy spot among the bushes near the water and settled down to build their nest. And only just in time, for now, they were beginning to molt. All their old wing feathers started to drop out, and they would not be able to fly again until the new ones grew in. But of course they could swim, and one day they swam over to the park on the riverbank, and there they met a policeman called Michael. Michael fed them peanuts, and after that the mallards called on Michael every day. The birds remember who feeds them. After Mrs. Mallard had laid 8 eggs in the nest, she couldn't go to visit Michael anymore because she had to sit on the eggs to keep them warm. She moved off the nest only to get a drink of water, or to have her lunch, or to count the eggs and make sure they were all there. One day, the ducklings hatched out. First came Jack, then Cack, and then Lack, then Mack, and Knack, and Whack, and Pack, and Quack. Mr. and Mrs. Mallard were bursting with pride. It was a great responsibility taking care of so many ducklings. It kept them very busy, as you would imagine. One day, Mr. Mallard decided he'd like to take a trip to see what the rest of the river was like further on. So off he set. "I'll meet you in a week in the public garden," he quacked over his shoulder. "Take good care of the ducklings." "Don't you worry," said Mrs. Mallard. "I know all about bringing up children." And she did. She taught them how to swim and dive. She taught them how to walk in a line, to come when they were called, and to keep a safe distance from bikes and scooters and other things with wheels. When at last she felt perfectly satisfied with them, she said one morning, "Come along, children, follow me." Before you could wink an eyelash, Jack, Cack, Lack, Mac, Knack, Oak, Pack, and Quack fell into line, just as they had been taught. Mrs. Mallard led the way into the water, and they swam behind her to the opposite bank. There they waded ashore and waddled along till they came to the highway. Mrs. Mallard stepped out to cross the road. Honk, honk, went the horns on the speeding cars. Quack, went Mrs. Mallard as she tumbled back again. Quack, 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 went Jack, Cack, Lack, Mack, Knack, Oak, Pack, and Quack, just as loud as their little quackers could quack. The cars kept speeding by and honking, and Mrs. Mallard and the ducklings kept right on, quack, quack, quacking. They made such a noise that Michael, remember the policeman that fed them peanuts, Michael came running, waving his arms and blowing his whistle. That wasn't a very good whistle. No, I'm not very good at that. My son is. He's got a loud whistle. He planted himself in the center of the road, raised one hand to stop the traffic, and then beckoned with the other, the way policemen do, for Mrs. Mallard to cross over.
There you go.
As soon as Mrs. Mallard and the ducklings were safe on the other side and on their way down Mount Vernon Street, Michael rushed back to his police booth. He called Clancy at the headquarters and said, "There's a family of ducks walking down the street." Clancy said, "Family of what?" "Ducks," yelled Michael. "Send a police car, quick." Meanwhile, Mrs. Mallard had reached the corner bookshop and turned into Charles Street with Jack, Cack, Lack, Mack, Knack, Oak, Pack, and Quack all marching in line behind her. Everyone stared. An old lady from Beacon Hill said, "Isn't it amazing?" And the man who swept the street said, "Well, now, ain't that nice?" And when Mrs. Mallard heard them, she was so proud, she tipped her nose in the air and walked along with an extra swing in her waddle. When they came to the corner of Beacon Street, there was the police car with 4 policemen that Clancy had sent from headquarters. The policemen held back the traffic so Mrs. Mallard and the ducklings could march across the street. Right into the public garden. Inside the gate, they all turned around to say, "Thank you," to the policeman. The policeman smiled and waved goodbye. When they reached the pond and swam across to the little island, there was Mr. Mallard waiting for them just as he had promised. The ducklings liked the new island so much that they decided to live there. All day long, they follow the swan boats and eat peanuts. And when night falls, they swim to their little island and go to sleep. The end. Thank you, Bennett. How are we doing on time?
Got 1 minute.
All right.
So we can just close up and say thank you.
Well, why don't we close up shop? I had planned to read 5 books, but I can be a little long-winded sometimes. I guess a 10-year career in broadcasting will do that to you. But it's been a real treat and a real pleasure, and all these books are available here at the Gumtree Bookstore at Reed's. Once again, my thanks to Bennett Mize for asking me to do this morning, and Jack Reed Jr. for allowing me to fill this seat. I enjoyed it very much. And now that I am leaving this chair and my special friends, I'll put my mask back on and bid you a pleasant goodbye.